My 75th birthday. I woke up expecting nothing. That's what 75 teaches you, to expect nothing, to appreciate everything. But that morning, my phone buzzed. A text from my son, David. "Happy birthday, Mom. Sent you a little something. Hope you have a great day." My heart warmed. My son, the millionaire, the one who'd made it big in real estate, who drove a Mercedes, who lived in a penthouse downtown. He remembered. I opened the bank notification. $50. $50. My millionaire son sent me $50 for my 75th birthday. I stared at the screen for a long time. Then I smiled. Not a happy smile, a knowing smile, because David had no idea that I didn't need his money. He had no idea that I had $2 million sitting in a trust he knew nothing about. He had no idea that I owned the building where his fancy real estate office was located. He had no idea that every month his rent check came to me. And he definitely had no idea what was coming. Hi, everyone. I'm Sarah, and you're listening to Grandmaa Stories. Today's story is about a mother who taught her millionaire son the most expensive lesson of his life. If you watch until the end, you'll see why silent revenge is sometimes the sweetest revenge of all. Comment below which city you're watching from. I read every single comment. My name is Eleanor. I'm 75 years old. Most people look at me and see just another gray-haired grandmother, someone who bakes cookies, knits sweaters, and sits on the porch watching the world go by. And that's fine. I've spent my whole life being underestimated. But let me tell you about the woman behind the gray hair. 40 years ago, I was a single mother with 2 children and nothing but determination. My husband had left when the kids were young, ran off with his secretary, emptied our bank account, left me with nothing but debt and shame. I worked 3 jobs to keep food on the table, waitressing during the day, cleaning offices at night, and on weekends I babysat for families richer than me. My son David was 10 when his father left. My daughter Rachel was 7. They watched me struggle, watched me cry, watched me fight. And I promised myself one day they'd never have to worry about money. One day I'd give them everything. I kept that promise, just not the way they expected. While David was climbing the corporate ladder and Rachel was building her family, I was doing something they never knew about. I was investing. Not in stocks or bonds. I never trusted those. I invested in real estate. Small properties at first, a duplex in a rough neighborhood, a tiny apartment building with more problems than tenants. I fixed them up myself. Painting, plumbing, whatever needed doing. I learned from YouTube videos and library books. I was 60 years old learning how to fix toilets. Slowly, property by property, I built a portfolio. By the time I turned 70, I owned 4 buildings, 12 apartments total. Nothing flashy, nothing in fancy neighborhoods, but solid, income-producing properties that paid me rent every single month. I never told my children. Why would I? They had their own lives. David was a big-shot real estate agent, always posting pictures of luxury listings on social media. Rachel was busy with her husband and kids. They called on holidays, sent cards on birthdays. They were present, just not present enough to notice what their mother was building. And then, 5 years ago, something happened that changed everything. David's real estate career took off. He started his own agency, rented a fancy office in a new downtown building, hired a staff, bought that Mercedes. He was living the dream, or so he thought. One day, he called me, excited. "Mom, you won't believe it. I found the perfect office space. Brand new building, great location, amazing views. I'm signing the lease next week." I congratulated him, asked all the right questions. What I didn't tell him was that I knew that building. I knew it very well, because 3 years earlier, I'd bought it. Yes, my son, the millionaire real estate agent, was renting office space from his 72-year-old mother, and he had no idea. Every month, his assistant sent a rent check to a property management company. Every month, that check was deposited into an account under my name. Every month, David's money came to me, and he never once asked who owned the building. Why would he? His mother was just a sweet old lady who baked cookies. She couldn't possibly own a downtown high-rise. That's what he thought. Which brings me back to my 75th birthday. That morning, after David's $50 text, I sat at my kitchen table with my coffee, thinking about everything. The years of struggle, the years of silence, the years of watching my son become exactly the kind of man I hoped he wouldn't be. David wasn't a bad person. He just forgot where he came from. He forgot the nights I came home exhausted, too tired to eat. He forgot the Christmases when all I could afford was one small gift for each of them. He forgot the woman who worked 3 jobs so he could have a decent life. All he remembered was his own success, his own money, his own importance. And that $50 text, that wasn't generosity, that was obligation, a checkbox. Sent Mom something for her birthday. Done. I checked my phone again. No call, no, how are you, no, can I take you to dinner, just a text and $50. I thought about calling him, about telling him the truth, about watching his face when he realized his mother owned his office building. But I didn't. Instead, I smiled, poured more coffee, and waited, because I knew the moment would come, the moment when he needed me, and when it did, I'd be ready. 3 weeks later, it happened. My phone rang late in evening. David, not a text, an actual call. That was rare enough to make me pause before answering. "Mom?" His voice was different, strained, worried. "David, what's wrong?" "Mom, I need to ask you something." I sat down, my heart suddenly pounding. "What is it, sweetheart?" "Remember when Dad left? When you were struggling?" "Of course I remember." "Did you ever, did you ever hide money, save anything, put anything aside that I don't know about?" The question hung in the air. I could hear his breathing, quick and nervous. "Why are you asking?" A long pause. Then, quietly, "Mom, my business is in trouble, big trouble. I made some bad investments, borrowed too much. If I don't come up with $100,000 by next month, I'm going to lose everything, the agency, the car, my home, everything." I closed my eyes. So this was it, the moment I'd been waiting for. "David, I'm sorry, I don't have that kind of money." "But Mom, you must have something. You've always been so careful. Even a little would help." "A little? How much is a little?" Another pause. Then, quietly, "Could you lend me $50,000? I'll pay you back, I promise." $50,000, the exact amount he'd sent me over the past 10 years if I added up every birthday, every Christmas, every thinking of you text with a small transfer. $50 at a time. I thought about it for a long moment. Then I said, "David, I'll have to think about it. Let me call you tomorrow." "Mom, please, I'm desperate." "I know, sweetheart. I'll call you tomorrow." I hung up and sat in the darkness of my kitchen. The moon was full outside, lighting up my garden. My roses were blooming, red and white and pink, just like always. I thought about all those years, all those sacrifices, All those nights I went to bed hungry so my children could eat. All those holidays I pretended I wasn't lonely. And I thought about that $50 birthday text. The next morning, I went to my computer and opened my bank account. I transferred $50 into David's account. Then I sent him a text. "Happy birthday, son. Sent you a little something." He called within minutes. "Mom, what is this? I don't understand." "You sent me $50 for my birthday, David. I'm sending you $50 for your troubles. We're even." "Even? Mom, I asked for $50,000. I'm losing everything." "I know, sweetheart, and I'm sorry, but you taught me something important. You taught me that love isn't measured in dollars. It's measured in presence, in calls, in..."
Last time on Grandma's Stories, Eleanor celebrated her 75th birthday alone until her millionaire son David sent her a text with $50. $50 for 75 years of life. $50 for the woman who worked 3 jobs to raise him. But Eleanor had secrets of her own. $2 million in a trust, a downtown office building that David rented for his real estate agency, and the quiet satisfaction of watching her son's money come to her every month without him ever knowing. Then David called, desperate. His business was failing. He needed $50,000. Eleanor sent him $50. Now David is on his way to her house. He doesn't know what's waiting for him. He doesn't know that his mother owns everything. And he definitely doesn't know that the biggest lesson of his life is about to begin. Let's continue. 2 days after that phone call, I was in my garden, pruning my roses, when I heard a car pull into my driveway. A familiar engine, David's Mercedes. I didn't look up. I kept trimming, letting the silence do its work. The car door slammed, footsteps on the gravel, then his voice, strained and desperate. "Mom?" I set down my pruning shears and turned slowly. There he was, my son, the millionaire, except he didn't look like a millionaire anymore. His shirt was wrinkled, his eyes were red, his hands were shaking. "David, what a surprise." "Mom, please, we need to talk." I wiped my hands on my gardening apron and gestured toward the porch. "Sit down, I'll make tea." He followed me like a lost puppy, sitting on the porch swing while I went inside. I took my time with the tea, boiling water, steeping the leaves, arranging cups on a tray. Let him wait, let him think. When I came back out, he was staring at his hands, his leg bouncing with nervous energy. I set the tray down, poured 2 cups, and sat across from him. "So, talk." "Mom, I don't know where to start." "How about the beginning?" He took a deep breath. "I lied to you. My business isn't just in trouble, it's destroyed. I borrowed money from the wrong people. I made investments that went bad. I might lose everything." I sipped my tea calmly. "I see." "Mom, I know I haven't been the best son. I know I've been distant. I know I should have called more, visited more, been more present. But please, you're my mother. You're the only one who can help me." "Help you how?" "I need money, a lot of it. If I don't pay back my loans by the end of the month, these people, they're not patient, Mom. They'll take everything. They might hurt me." I set my cup down and looked at him, really looked at him. This man, my son, had everything and threw it away, and now he was sitting on my porch begging for help from the mother he'd forgotten about. "David, do you remember when you were 10 years old, right after your father left?" He frowned, vaguely. "I came home one night after working a double shift. I was so tired I could barely stand. You were hungry and there was no food in the house. I gave you the last $5 in my wallet and told you to walk to the corner store and buy yourself a sandwich. You asked me, 'Mom, aren't you gonna eat?' I told you I'd eaten at work." His eyes widened slightly. He remembered. "I didn't eat that night, David. There was no food at work. I just wanted you to have something. I went to bed hungry so you wouldn't have to." "Mom, And now you're a millionaire. You drive a Mercedes. You live in a penthouse. You send me $50 for my 75th birthday." The words hung in the air like accusations. "Mom, I'm sorry. I mean it. I'll do better." Should have, could have, would have. Those words don't feed hungry children, David. They don't build relationships. They don't replace the years you forgot about me. He buried his face in his hands. For a long moment the only sound was the wind through my roses and the distant hum of traffic. Then I said quietly, "David, I own your building." He looked up, confused. "What?" "The building where your office is, the one where you send rent every month. I own it. Eleanor Holdings, LLC. That's me." His face went pale. "That's not possible. I bought it 3 years ago, with money I saved and invested over 40 years. Every month your rent check comes to me. Every month I deposit it into an account you don't know about." "But how? You're just your mother? Just an old woman who bakes cookies and grows roses?" "Yes, David, that's who I am. But I'm also the woman who worked 3 jobs to raise you. The woman who went hungry so you could eat. The woman who never stopped building even when no one was watching." He stared at me, mouth open, unable to speak. "Do you know how much money you've sent me in rent over the past 3 years?" He shook his head slowly. $108,000, and you never once asked who owned the building, never once questioned where the money was going. You just wrote the checks and forgot about 'em." "Mom, I didn't know." "Of course you didn't, because you never asked, you never wondered, you never thought your mother could be anything more than what you saw." Tears filled his eyes, real tears, not the performance kind. "I'm so sorry." "Sorry is a word, David. It's not an action. It's not a change. It's just a word." I stood up and walked to the edge of the porch, looking out at my roses. "Do you see these roses?" He nodded, wiping his eyes. "I planted them years ago. Every year I prune 'em, water 'em, feed 'em, and every year they come back stronger, more beautiful, more resilient. That's what love is supposed to do, David. It's supposed to help things grow, not forget about 'em." "Mom, please, give me a chance to make this right." I turned back to him. "I've given you 75 years of chances, David. 75 years of love, of sacrifice, of hoping you'd become the man I raised you to be. And where did that get me? $50 on my birthday." He stood up, desperate now. "Then what do you want from me? What can I do?" I walked back to my chair and sat down slowly. "I want you to understand something. I have $2 million, David, in a trust. Money I built over 40 years, one property at a time. I don't need your rent money. I don't need your $50. I don't need anything from you." His face crumbled. "Then why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you help me?" "Because helping you isn't the same as saving you. If I give you money now, you'll learn nothing. You'll make the same mistakes again. You'll keep forgetting who you are and where you came from. So you're just gonna let me fail?" I looked at him, my son, broken and desperate on my porch, and I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Not pity, not anger, just clarity. I'm gonna let you choose, David. You can walk away from here and figure this out on your own, learn from your mistakes, become the man I know you can be, or you can keep begging, keep failing, keep blaming everyone else for your problems. The choice is yours. But, Mom, I need you. No, David, you need yourself. You've always needed yourself. I was just the safety net you never bothered to look at. I stood up and picked up the tea tray. I'll be inside if you need to talk, but I won't give you money. I won't save you. That's not my job anymore. I walked inside, leaving him on the porch alone with his tears and my roses. Through the window, I watched him sit there for a long time. Then he stood up, walked to his car, and drove away. I didn't know if he'd ever come back, but for the first time in years, I was at peace with whatever happened next. That night, my phone started buzzing. David, Mom, I'm sorry. I mean it. I'll do better. David, I don't know how to fix this, but I want to try. David, please don't give up on me. I read each message but didn't reply, not because I was angry, but because I needed him to sit with his own thoughts, to really feel what he'd done, to understand that love isn't automatic. It's built brick by brick, year by year. Then Rachel called. Mom, what happened with David? He called me crying, talking about buildings and money and you owning something. I couldn't make sense of it. I sighed. Rachel, sit down. This might take a while. I told her everything, the properties, the trust, the building.
But Eleanor didn't give him money. She gave him something harder, the truth. She told him about the building she owned, the savings she'd built, the life he'd forgotten about. And then she gave him a choice: figure it out himself or keep failing. David sold his Mercedes. He moved out of his penthouse. He texted her, asking for a chance. And Eleanor, despite everything, invited him to Sunday dinner. Today, you'll see what happened at that dinner. You'll see the confession no one expected, and you'll learn a secret that changes everything. Sunday morning, I woke up early, earlier than usual. The sun was just starting to peek through my curtains, painting my bedroom in soft gold light. I lay there for a while, thinking about the day ahead. David was coming for dinner. First time in months, maybe years, and I didn't know what to expect. Would he be angry, apologetic, fake, genuine? I got up, made coffee, and walked to my garden. The roses were blooming, red and pink and white, just like always. I talked to them sometimes. Silly, I know, but after years alone, you learn to find comfort in small things. Well, roses, I said, today's the day. Let's see what happens. They didn't answer, of course, but the breeze moved through 'em, and for a moment they seemed to nod. I spent the morning cooking pot roast, David's favorite when he was a boy, mashed potatoes the way his father used to make them, green beans from my garden, apple pie for dessert. Comfort food, memory food, the kind of meal that says, I remember you without using words. By 4 p.m., everything was ready. The table was set. The house smelt like childhood. I sat on the porch, waiting. At 4:30, a car pulled into the driveway. Not a Mercedes, some small rental, practical and plain. David got out, looking nervous. He wore jeans and a simple button-down shirt. No fancy suits, no designer labels, just normal. He walked up the path slowly, like he was approaching something fragile. Mom? I stood up and smiled. Come in, David. Dinner's ready. We ate in the dining room, the same room where we'd shared thousands of meals when he was a boy.
At first, the conversation was careful, cautious, polite questions about nothing. "How's the garden? How are you feeling? The pot roast is delicious, Mom." But eventually the real talk started. "Mom, I've been thinking about what you said, about remembering where I came from, about those nights you went hungry so I could eat." I set down my fork. "Go on." "I didn't remember, not really. I'd pushed it all away, the struggle, the sacrifice, the years you worked yourself to exhaustion. I told myself a story where I made it on my own, where I didn't owe anyone anything. And now? Now I see how wrong I was. I owe you everything. Every good thing in my life came from you, and I treated you like an afterthought." His voice cracked. He looked down at his plate. "I'm not asking for money, Mom. I just want you to know that I know. I finally understand." I reached across the table and touched his hand. "That means more than money ever could." We sat in silence for a moment. Then he looked up and I saw something in his eyes I hadn't seen in years. My little boy, vulnerable and real. "There's something else, Mom, something I've never told anyone." My heart tightened. "What is it?" He took a deep breath. "When Dad left, I blamed you. For years, I blamed you. I thought you must have done something wrong. I thought if you'd been a better wife, he would have stayed." The words hit me like a physical blow. I pulled my hand back. "David!" "I know, it's terrible. I was just a kid and I didn't understand. But that feeling stayed with me, buried deep. It made me pull away. It made me build walls. It made me treat you like you weren't enough." Tears were streaming down his face now. "And the worst part, you were always enough. You were more than enough. You were everything, and I was too blind to see it." I sat there, my own eyes filling with tears. 30 years of distance, of coldness, of wondering what I'd done wrong, and now I finally understood. It wasn't about me, it was about a little boy who didn't know how to process his father leaving. "Oh, David!" "I'm so sorry, Mom. I'm so sorry." I stood up and walked around the table. I pulled him into my arms, the way I used to when he was small and scared, and we cried together, mother and son, finally honest after all these years. We were still sitting there, wiping tears and catching our breath, when the doorbell rang. I looked at David, confused. "Are you expecting anyone?" He shook his head. "No, just me." I walked to the door and opened it. "Rachel!" My daughter stood on my porch holding a bottle of wine and looking nervous. Behind her, a taxi was pulling away. "Rachel, what are you doing here?" "I called David this morning. He told me about dinner. I hope it's okay that I came. I just felt like I needed to be here." I pulled her into a hug. "Of course it's okay. Come in, come in." She stepped inside and saw David at the dining table, his eyes red from crying. For a moment they just looked at each other. Then Rachel walked over and sat down next to David. "David called me a few days ago, told me everything, about the building, about the money, about his visit, and I realized something." "What's that?" I asked. "We've all been living separate lives for too long. David in his penthouse, me in my suburbs, you in this house alone. We forgot we're a family. We forgot we're supposed to be there for each other." David nodded. "She's right. I forgot. We all forgot." I sat at the table with my 2 children, my son who'd forgotten me, my daughter who'd never left, and for the first time in years, we were together, really together. "There's enough pot roast for everyone," I said, smiling through fresh tears. "Sit, eat. Let's talk." That night we talked for hours, really talked, not the polite surface conversations we'd had for years. Rachel shared her own struggles, her husband's job loss, her daughter's struggles in school, the loneliness of being a mother without her own mother nearby. I had no idea. She'd never told me. David talked about the pressure he'd felt to be successful, to prove himself, to show the world that the boy whose father left had made something of himself. He'd chased money and status because he thought that's what mattered. He'd lost sight of everything else. And I told them about the years after their father left, the loneliness, the fear, the determination to build something so I'd never be dependent on anyone again. "I never wanted you to worry about me," I said. "I wanted you to live your lives without that weight. But maybe I went too far. Maybe I should have let you in." Rachel reached for my hand. "We should have asked. We should have been more present." David nodded. "We all made mistakes, but tonight feels like a start." I looked at my two children, imperfect, complicated, human, and I loved them more than I ever had. "It is a start," I said, "and that's enough for now." After dinner, we moved to the porch. Rachel brought out more wine. David brought the pie. We sat in the darkness, surrounded by the scent of roses, and talked about nothing and everything. At one point, David said, "Mom, about the building." I held up my hand. "We don't need to talk about that tonight. But I want to. I want you to know that I'm not going to ask you for anything. I'm going to figure this out on my own. I already found a job, selling cars at a dealership. It's not glamorous, but it's honest work, and I'm going to pay back everyone I owe bit by bit." I looked at my son, the millionaire who now sold cars, and felt something I hadn't felt in years. Pride. "That's my boy," I said quietly. Rachel squeezed my hand. "We're going to be all right, Mom, all of us." I looked at my garden, silver in the moonlight. The roses were still blooming. They always bloom. "Yes," I said, "I think we will." Later that night, after Rachel and David had left, Rachel was staying at a hotel, David at his small new apartment, I sat in my bedroom and thought about everything. I opened my nightstand drawer.
Rachel showed up unexpectedly. For the first time in years, the three of them sat together, ate together, talked together. Real talk, honest talk, the kind of talk that heals old wounds. David sold his Mercedes. He moved out of his penthouse. He got a job selling cars. Honest work, humble work. He was trying, really trying. But the past doesn't stay in the past, and the people David owed money to, they hadn't forgotten. Today, you'll see what happens when they show up at Eleanor's door. 2 weeks after that beautiful Sunday dinner, I was in my garden as usual. The roses were still blooming, red and pink and white, a riot of color against the green. I noticed a car parked across the street. Nothing unusual, people parked there sometimes, but this car had been there for a while, and the two men inside weren't getting out. I watched 'em for a moment, then went back to my pruning. Probably nothing. But an hour later, the car was still there, and now one of the men was standing outside, leaning against the hood, watching my house. My phone buzzed. "David." "Listen to me carefully. Are you home?" "Yes, in the garden. Why?" "There might be some people coming by. If they do, don't answer the door. Don't talk to 'em. Call me immediately." "David, what's going on?" A pause. Then, "The people I owe money to. They've been looking for me.
I've been staying with a friend, keeping a low profile, but somehow they found out I visited you. They might come asking questions." I looked at the man across the street. He was still watching my house. "David, there's a car parked across from my house, 2 men inside. One of 'em is outside now, watching." I heard him swear under his breath. "Mom, I'm coming. Don't open the door for anyone. I'll be there in 20 minutes. He hung up. I stood in my garden, pruning shears in hand, looking at the man across the street. He looked back at me. Neither of us moved. Then he smiled, a cold, unfriendly smile. I walked inside and locked the door. 15 minutes later, the knock came. I peered through the curtain. 2 men in suits, not expensive suits, but the kind worn by people who want to look professional while doing unprofessional things. The man who'd been watching smiled again. "Mrs. Henderson, we'd like to talk to you about your son." I didn't open the door. "My son isn't here." "We know, but we thought you might know where we can find him." "I don't." The other man stepped forward. His voice was harder, colder. "Ma'am, your son owes a lot of money to some very patient people, but that patience is running out. If you know where he is, it would be better for everyone if you told us." "I told you I don't." The first man smiled again. "We'll be in touch, Mrs. Henderson. Think about your son's safety. Think about your own." They walked back to their car and drove away. I stood there, my heart pounding for a long time. Then I called David. "They're gone, for now." "I'm almost there, Mom. Just stay inside." 5 minutes later, David's rental car pulled into my driveway. He ran to the door and I let him in. "Are you okay?" he asked, grabbing my shoulders, checking me like I was a child. "I'm fine. They didn't hurt me. They just threatened." David's face went pale. "This is my fault. I should never have come here. I should have stayed away." "David, stop. You're my son. You needed me. You came. That's what family does." "But Mom, these people, they're dangerous. They don't play games. If they think you know where I am, then we'll deal with it, together." He looked at me, tears in his eyes. "I don't deserve you." "Probably not, but you've got me anyway. Now sit down and tell me everything." We sat at the kitchen table, the same table where I'd made him lunch as a boy, where he'd done his homework, where he'd told me about his first job. I made tea and he talked. "The business just didn't fail, Mom. I made bad choices, really bad choices. I borrowed from people who aren't banks, people who don't use contracts, people who collect in person." "How much?" "A lot, more than I can ever pay back with a car salesman's salary. I was desperate and I made deals I shouldn't have made. Now they want their money and they don't care how they get it." "Why didn't you tell me this before?" He looked down at his hands. "Because I was ashamed, because I wanted you to see that I was changing, not that I was still running from the same problems." "Change isn't about having no problems. It's about how you face 'em." "What do I do, Mom? I can't pay 'em. I don't have anything left." I thought for a long moment. Then I said, "Let me make some calls." "What kind of calls?" "I've been in this city for 40 years, David. I know people. Not dangerous people, just people who know things. Let me see what I can find out." I spent the next hour on the phone. Old friends, former business associates, people I'd helped over the years. I didn't tell them everything, just that my son was in trouble and I needed information. By the evening, I had what I needed. The man who'd come to my door worked for a man named Vincent. He ran a small operation, loans, collections, nothing too big, but he was known for being patient. He'd wait years if he had to, and when he collected everything. I called David back to the kitchen. His name's Vincent. He's not the biggest fish in the pond, but he's persistent. The good news is he prefers to negotiate. The bad news is he doesn't negotiate forever. How do you know all this? I told you I know people. Now here's what we're gonna do. I laid it out simply. You're gonna call Vincent. You're gonna tell him you want to meet, not to fight, not to run, to talk. You're gonna bring a proposal. What kind of proposal? You're gonna offer to pay back everything. Not all at once, that's impossible, but in installments. You'll give him something every month, no matter what. It'll take years, but he'll get his money. Mom, I can't even afford my rent. How am I supposed to pay him? I'll help you. Not with a lump sum, that would just enable you, but I'll co-sign a payment plan. I'll guarantee that he gets paid. That way he knows you're serious. You'd do that after everything? I looked at my son, the boy who'd blamed me, forgotten me, hurt me, but also the man who'd cried on my porch, sold his Mercedes, and started over. David, I've spent my whole life building things, buildings, savings, a garden, but the most important thing I ever built was you and Rachel. If I can help you become the man I always knew you could be, that's worth more than any building. He hugged me then, really hugged me, the way he used to when he was small, and I held him the way I used to when he was small. Thank you, Mom. Don't thank me yet. Thank me after you make the call. David called Vincent that night. I sat beside him, my hand on his arm. Vincent, it's David Henderson. I could hear the voice on the other end, low, calm, dangerous. David, I was wondering when you'd call. Your mother has a nice house, nice garden. David's jaw tightened. Leave my mother out of this. This is between us. Is it? You owe me a lot of money, David. Money I've been very patient about, but patience runs out. I know. That's why I'm calling. I want to make this right. A pause. Then, I'm listening. I can't pay you all at once. I don't have it, but I can pay you every month, a set amount, automatically transferred. It'll take years, but you'll get every dollar. And why should I trust you? Because my mother is willing to guarantee it. She has assets. She'll co-sign the agreement. If I miss a payment, she'll cover it. Another long pause, then Vincent laughed. A low, amused sound. Your mother? The woman?
5 years. That's how long David had to prove himself. 5 years of monthly payments. 5 years of showing up. 5 years of becoming the man his mother always believed he could be. I signed that agreement with Vincent knowing it was a risk, but some risks are worth taking. Some bets are worth placing. Not on money, on people. Today, you'll see where David is 5 years later. You'll see if he kept his promises. You'll see what happened to Vincent, and you'll learn the secret I've been keeping, the gift I've been preparing my whole life. The garden looks different now. 5 years of growth will do that. The roses are taller, fuller, more beautiful than ever. I've added new colors, yellow for friendship, orange for enthusiasm. My garden is a rainbow of memories. I'm 80 now. My hands are a little slower, my knees a little creakier, but my heart is fuller than it's ever been. David is standing beside me in the garden, holding a small box. He's 48 now, with gray at his temples and a calmness in his eyes that wasn't there before. 5 years of selling cars, living simply, making payments, it changed him. "Mom, it's done," he says quietly. "The last payment went through this morning. I'm free." I look at my son, really look at him. This man who once had everything and lost it all. This man who came to my porch broken and desperate. This man who sold his Mercedes, moved into a small apartment, and worked a humble job for 5 years without complaining. "How do you feel?" I ask. He thinks for a moment. Tired, relieved, proud, I guess, but mostly grateful to you for believing in me when I didn't believe in myself. I take his hand. "You did the work, David. I just watched." "No, Mom, you did more than watch. You signed that agreement. You risked everything. You trusted me when I didn't deserve trust. You always deserved trust, David. You just forgot who you were for a while." He hugs me then, the way he does now, often and easily. 5 years has changed that too. That afternoon my phone rang. Vincent. "Mrs. Henderson, I wanted to call personally to tell you that your son's final payment has been received. The account is settled. He's kept his word." I smiled. I knew he would. "You had more faith than most. I've been doing this a long time. People like your son, they usually disappear. They run, they hide. But he showed up, month after month, year after year. That takes character. He learned it somewhere." Vincent laughed, a real laugh, warm and surprised. "Yes, I suppose he did. Take care, Mrs. Henderson, and tell your son he's off the hook for good." "Thank you, Vincent." I hung up and walked back to the garden. David was still there, touching the roses gently. Vincent called. "It's official. You're free." He closed his eyes for a moment, and I saw the weight lift from his shoulders. 5 years of carrying that burden finally over. "Mom, I don't know how to thank you." "You already have. Every month when you made that payment, you thanked me. Every time you showed up for dinner, you thanked me. Every time you became a little more the man I knew you could be, you thanked me." He smiled, that real smile I'd been seeing more and more. "So what now?" "Now we celebrate. Rachel's coming for dinner. I'm making pot roast, and you're gonna tell me about your plans." "Plans? You've been selling cars for 5 years, David. You must have thoughts about what comes next." He was quiet for a moment, then, "Actually, I do. I've been thinking about starting my own business again. Small this time. Honest. A little used car lot. Nothing fancy. I know the business, and I know how to treat people right now." I looked at my son, the man who'd lost everything and found himself in the process. "That sounds like a wonderful plan. Would you, if you wanted to, you could be my partner. Not with money, just with advice. I'd need someone to keep me honest." I laughed. "David, I've been keeping you honest your whole life. I'm not about to stop now." That evening, Rachel came for dinner. She brought her husband and her daughter, my granddaughter, Lily, now 16 and tall and smart and full of questions. We sat around the same table where David had cried 5 years ago, where we'd shared that first honest meal, where everything had started to change. Rachel raised her glass to Mom for never giving up on us. David raised his to Mom for everything. Lily looked at me with curious eyes. "Grandma, is it true you owned a whole building and Dad didn't know it?" I smiled. "It's true. He was paying me rent for years without realizing it." She burst out laughing. "That's the best thing I've ever heard. Dad, you're so clueless." David laughed too, a real easy laugh. I was, but I learned. After dinner, Lily pulled me aside. "Grandma, can I ask you something?" "Of course, sweetheart." "Dad told me about the agreement you signed, about how you risked everything for him. Why did you do it, after he was so absent for so long?" I sat down and pulled her close. "Lily, love isn't about keeping score. It's about showing up again and again, even when it's hard. Your father was lost for a long time, but I never stopped believing he'd find his way back. And if he hadn't, then I would have loved him anyway. That's what family does. We don't love because people deserve it. We love because they're ours." She hugged me tight. "You're the best grandma ever." "I know, sweetheart, I know." The next morning I woke up early and walked to my study. I opened the drawer where I kept all my important papers, the deeds, the accounts, the letters I'd written to myself over the years. I pulled out one envelope, thick, sealed, labeled "For David and Rachel." I'd been preparing this for years. Not money, something better. That afternoon I called 'em both to the house. They sat on my porch looking curious as I handed 'em the envelope. "What's this?" Rachel asked. "Open it." They did. Inside were documents, not bank statements, not property deeds, certificates, dozens of 'em, each one representing a scholarship I'd funded over the years in their names. 20 years ago, I started a small fund. Every year I added a little, not much, just what I could spare. I told myself that one day I'd use it to help kids who needed it, kids like you two once were, kids whose parents struggled, who deserved a chance. Rachel's eyes filled with tears. "Mom, I put your names on 'em. Every scholarship is in honor of David Henderson and Rachel Henderson, because you two taught me what really matters. Not buildings, not money, but the chance to become something more." David was speechless. He just stared at the papers, his hands shaking. Over the years, these scholarships have helped 47 kids go to college, 47 young people who might not have had a chance otherwise. That's my legacy. Not the buildings, not the savings, those kids. Rachel hugged me, sobbing. David joined her. We stood there on the porch, the three of us, surrounded by roses, crying together. "This is the most beautiful thing anyone has ever done," Rachel whispered. "No," I said. "The most beautiful thing was watching you two become who you are. Everything else is just paperwork." Later that evening, after they'd gone home, I walked through my garden one last time before dark. The roses were in full bloom, red and pink and white and yellow, a lifetime of colors. I thought about everything, the struggles, the sacrifices, the moments of loneliness and fear, the moments of joy and connection. I thought about David, who'd found himself again, about Rachel, who'd never left, about Lily, who represented the future, and I thought about those 47 kids out in the world living their lives because someone believed in them. I reached down and touched a red rose, the first one I'd ever planted all those years ago. It was still blooming, still beautiful, still alive. "Well, old friend," I whispered, "we did it. We really did it." The rose swayed in the breeze as if nodding. I smiled and walked back inside. That night I wrote one last letter, not to myself this time, to anyone who might read it someday. Dear reader, if you followed this story, you know about the $50 birthday gift, the building, the debt, the 5 years of payments, the scholarships. You know about David's journey and Rachel's love and my roses. But here's what I